So I think that to learn a language, you really need to use textbooks or any sort of formal book that's written by a teacher or a professor or someone with experience teaching languages. I think the reason is because language books, or textbooks, I guess, they are structured in such a way that, like, so there's a series of them, and once you finish the first level, right after it is another level 2 waiting for you. So there's just like that sequence, and it's sort of like each level is designed so that once you reach that level, it knows exactly what you've learned, so that it knows what to teach you next. I've never really used Duolingo or language learning apps like that. Okay, maybe I've used it like one time, so I can't really speak to that, but pretty much my whole life, 我学语言的方法基本上就是用课本。虽然这个方法可能有一点传统，但我觉得它好处在 it's just like a series of progression. Sorry, cannot. Honestly, my English is really bad, I think, because I spend all my time learning 4 languages. Like, my English definitely has gotten worse. So I think for learning Chinese, I guess it really depends on what your goal is and where you are. If you are living somewhere in the world where there are Chinese speakers, and you have access to meeting them or making friends with them or whatever, then that's a great chance to practice your Chinese. And I grew up in a place like that. So I grew up in Connecticut here in the US. I mean, there weren't like a lot of Chinese speakers, but I actually started studying Chinese in high school. I could definitely find people to speak Chinese with, but not a lot. But if you're somewhere in the US where like there are no Chinese people and you don't really have any, there's no way to meet them, then I don't know, I just feel like for learning languages, you need to figure out what method works for you best. For me, it's a very traditional textbook approach. But I feel like most people that I meet who learn languages don't like to use textbooks. Maybe it's because just in our generation, you know, millennials or Gen Z, right? That's the one after millennials. Maybe for us, like, we're just more inclined to use technology. But like, okay, if you meet anyone who has become fluent in Chinese, ask them how they learn it. I bet like 90% of them took a formalized Chinese course where there was a textbook. But then again, if you don't have access to that, then it's different. I'll try to make a list of the Chinese textbook series that I've used before and the ones that I think would be great. When deciding how to use which textbooks to use, sorry, did that even make sense? When deciding which textbooks to use to study Chinese, I think the best way is to just go on any website of like a university or high school and then look to see what textbook series they show for their Chinese classes. So most universities will do this. Like, you can just go to their Chinese program website, and then if you click on the courses, sometimes it'll tell you which textbooks they use, and just like look at the beginning courses all the way to advanced and just like see what textbooks they use. I think the one that I used when I was in university, I used New Practical Chinese Reader. That's a really good series. I'd definitely recommend that. There's also Integrated Chinese. Basically, once you have pronunciation down for any language, then you can just jump right into learning, you know, grammar and vocabulary. But if there's no native speaker there to correct you on your pronunciation, I mean, that can be hard. It can be difficult sometimes. For me, I always grew up playing music. I had an ear for music. I think that helped me studying Chinese, and you definitely see a lot of people out there who are really passionate about both languages and music. I think there's a connection. So for me, like, learning pronunciation was never really that hard, but I guess like the only reservation I would have about just using textbooks is that there's no person in front of you teaching you how to learn the language. But I think if you can just maybe watch some YouTube videos, and I can make some videos later about like pronunciation, but if you can just like get the pronunciation down for a language, then once you get that down, then you can just start using textbooks. And also, I like textbooks because textbooks at the beginning of the book will tell you how to pronounce vowels. And the best would be if there's a CD or some audio files, and then you just try to mimic their sounds as best as possible. I mean, okay, here's the thing. When learning a foreign language, like 98% of the time, like, you'll never reach the level of a native speaker. I mean, there can be moments when you speak really well. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is don't get so tied up on having perfect pronunciation. Like, just try to get it good enough, or as best as you can, and then just go forward. Perfectionism will, of course, hinder you, because like, what situation would you rather have? Like, really good pronunciation, but hardly any knowledge of grammar and vocab, or like okay and acceptable pronunciation and really good grammar and vocab? Like, obviously the second one. Like, as long as people can basically understand what I'm saying, that's fine. And I feel like especially for Americans, like in the USA, in a country where there are so many other languages spoken here and a lot of people coming from other countries, we are used to communicating with people with different accents. And we can still understand them usually, for the most part, pretty good or perfectly. So yeah, don't let pronunciation bother you. But yeah, I've always loved using textbooks because it's almost like a lesson plan laid out for you. And you don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, like which lessons should I read? You know, it's like, wow, you have like 8 different books, like levels 1 to level 8, like all prepared for you. So once you finish book 1, you go into book 2, and then book 3, and book 4, and book 5, and book 6. I guess it's with any subject that you would have learned in school, like math. Times in which you would want to use language learning apps like Duolingo, is that how you say it? Duolingo? Well, you can tell I don't really use it a lot. Would be if you're someone, maybe like that's just the way that you enjoy learning, like you like using technology, and maybe you've tried learning a language before but you really haven't made a lot of progress and you're sort of really hoping on an app, then yeah, maybe go for it. Like if nothing else is working, then yeah, try an app. Or if an app is the only thing that is exciting you to get up and commit time to learning a language, then yeah, go for it. Okay, here's another thing. Actually, I think the best way to learn a language is to supplement it with as many different learning paths as possible. So don't just do one method, like incorporate like 10 methods into your language learning plan. So let's say you're using a textbook. I think that's great because it teaches you the grammar and the vocab and everything. That gives you sort of like a foundation from which to grow on. But then in addition to that, I think you can watch Chinese movies or Chinese TV shows. They usually always have subtitles, so if you don't know a word, you just look it up. 好的，那就先简单的说一下我自己学中文的经验，还有历来。是说历来吗? When I started learning Chinese, I think my first foray into it was when I was like in middle school. Like my parents signed me up, or I asked them to sign me up for like a weekend Chinese class, like a half-hour drive away from my house. So I didn't really learn much, but yeah, that was like my initial touch of Chinese. And then when I was in high school, I started learning it again. I went to a public high school here in Connecticut, and they started offering it when I was in 10th grade. So then I studied it for 2 years. I really regret that I didn't put more effort into that class. I think I thought it was like an easy A for me, so I just sort of slacked off and didn't really learn a lot. And then when I went to college, I sort of had to start from 0. So I took the placement test, but they recommended that I just go in the beginner Chinese course. So yeah, like my experience studying Chinese was definitely taking a class. Again, I've just always used textbooks or gone to a class. If there's any way that you guys could even find like an online tutor, aka me, hit me up after, or send me a message or a comment here, and maybe we can sync up and we can do private lessons in Chinese. Like all of my Chinese teachers have always been native Chinese speakers. Should you learn Chinese from a non-native speaker, I think there's pros and cons, but definitely the pros is that like I've been through the process, so I know exactly what difficulties you're gonna come across. Also, I feel like I could teach Chinese and even Spanish better than English because you like learned the grammar methodically and systematically. So even like there are some online sites where you can find Chinese tutors. There's definitely ways to learn it without having to pay money. You can check out your local library and see if they have any Chinese books or textbooks. Another thing is usually any nearby universities, they will open their library to the public and you can sign up for a library card, and sometimes they will have the textbooks that the Chinese courses use. So I think that's pretty much just a wrap up for like why I think learning textbooks has really helped me. Again, it's systematic, there's already a structure laid out, so you feel at ease knowing that you have the entire like 4 or 5 years ahead of you, assuming that that's how long it might take to reach an advanced level of Chinese. Comment below, let me know what your guys' thoughts are. I'd love to hear what textbook series any of you guys have used. And in addition, what else have you guys used to learn Chinese? 我叫盖文，然后非常感谢你们。让我们介绍一下我自己学中文经验. If you guys have any suggestions on what video I should do next time, just comment below. And don't forget to subscribe. 好的，谢谢，拜拜。